Welcome back inside the lab, everybody. That is the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Monday edition. We're kicking the week off with the top waiver wire targets that you need to add. A whole bunch of news, injuries, return to ice, and some feel-good stories that we have to talk about. Plus, it's big-time bets, baby. It is a loaded Monday board. Let's get right to it. Thank you for joining us.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fantasy fanatics, hockey degenerates, and gamblers across the NHL realm, welcome back to your show. It is the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. As always, brought to you with my co-host, Mr. Steele Roden, and it's your boy, Big Flip Livingstone, holding it down Monday to Friday across all platforms you can find your favorite and hottest content. Thank you for checking us out and making us your first listen every single day. We appreciate it, and we're trying to feed you all the fantasy news that you guys need to try and get a leg up in your fantasy leagues and circles. Man, there's a lot to get to on today's episode, Steele. Mondays are always busy. We got our top waiver wire targets. Steele and I have had our eyes on some players that, I have some keeper advice as well. I like to talk dynasty. We're going to get into that. There's some feel-good news from the Vegas Golden Knights. There's injury news to take a look at, and a whole bunch of big-time bets for Monday's board. Can Steele and I keep this money rolling into Christmas? It's an expensive season, Steele, so it's nice to go on a heater headed into the holidays. Hey, buy the lady friend or the man friend a couple of extra treats around the holidays. Happy to be back with you, my friend. Let's talk about, though, I'd say right off the top, some feel-good news out of the Vegas Golden Knights. Let's have a quick look at this Alex Pietrangelo situation, because it is time to look at these guys aren't just hockey players. They're human beings, and this is a good story to talk about.
Yeah, it is. And, it is a feel-good story. It's one that, for me, doesn't hit home personally because I'm not a father, but it's a very serious conversation. And it is good to see Alex Pietrangelo back with the Vegas Golden Knights. He's missed the last 9 games for personal reasons. I think at this point, everyone knows that his 4-year-old daughter had some health concerns going on with her that really just shut down her entire body. And that was some major concern for the family. And I'm not sure how much we want to go into detail about it. I heard Bruce Cassidy on his, press conference as well, talk about it a little bit. He said, basically, it's great to have Pietrangelo back in the room. He's a great leader. And obviously for the other guys who are a father in the dressing room, it means a lot to see that he's back and he's happy, and everything that was taken care of for his family is going back in a good direction. And obviously for the health of his 4-year-old daughter, it's good to see that she's back and being healthy as well.
You and I come on this show every single day, and we talk about these players and their fantasy value like they're pieces and chips, and they are to our fantasy game, but there's human beings behind the side of this. And so you don't always see that from athletes, Steele. And look, speaking of fantasy, Alex Pietrangelo was 21 points in 23 games before he got hurt. Or before he stepped away from the team. And, you mentioned his absence, 9 games. If you've been trying to fill this void, you and I have talked at length what it's like to try and fill an important blue liner spot. Yeah. Now he's back. And look, the human side of this, it's just an amazing story. And she was in the crowd on Saturday night. His daughter was there well enough. She was paralyzed from this disease a week ago. You can see it on his face. And he steps right back in, Steele, and is effective. He has an assist. He logs a bunch of minutes. He was, an important piece of the game for the Vegas Golden Knights. And we just need to highlight how awesome this is. She's back to health. This is a story that, the NHL, there's not a lot of good characters to talk about. You and I don't get to come on here and go, here's a really cool story that doesn't relate to, a point streak or a hot team. So let's just humanize the sport for a second. One that really needs it. Alex Pietrangelo, stand-up human being, stand-up leader as well. You just now want to see this guy do well. And hey, if he was doing well before and now he's fired up, take a look at Alex Pietrangelo's value, Steele. That's that. But let's talk about some of these other situations going on in the NHL. Players returning to ice. We have players injured. Where you want to go next? Take it away, my friend.
Yeah, let's talk about Jakub Vrana of the Detroit Red Wings, reinstated by the NHL, NHLPA Player Assistance Program over the weekend. He is back at practice with the Red Wings, still listed as IR
Yeah.
on fantasy leagues. So that is another chip that is available as of right now. It's actually a player that I've already picked up in a
Nice.
couple of leagues as well.
Nice.
He played 26 games last year. He had some shoulder injuries last year that
Yes.
limited him to that time. I think he injured himself at training camp, but I think you and I can both agree that this is a talented player, and I'll get to him later in waiver wire targets.
Ooh, very nice tease. We're also going to get to big time bets. Hey, we're showing love to some good stories, but people, we got to pay these bills. We got to make these picks and highlight the players that you need to look at. I'll say this about Jakub Vrana. If he can come back, he also declined comment on why he was in the player assistance program. That always draws a little bit of questions from me. I'm not trying
Yeah.
to judge anybody. I'm trying to make money and make a good fantasy team. So when he isn't even able to address it, I'm a bit concerned, Steele. That was one of the things, I read the comments that he was asked. He's not ready to say why he was in the assistance program, but there's some very interesting players that he might be in the mix when he comes back to these Red Wings. If he can start putting up numbers, they have a lot of good young players and the mix of veterans. The Red Wings, you know what I think about the Red Wings, but this Verona situation is interesting and it's developing. And we've seen he's a sniper when he gets it going. I really
Yeah.
don't use that term very often. I feel like Verona really is a sniper. He's offense only, shoot first, pass second, maybe pass never. Verona is a target. I'm glad that you teased the waiver wire. I want to hear more about what you have to say about that. Where are we going next, my friend?
Well, let's just keep the ball rolling here. Ryan Hartman of the Minnesota Wild is back in action as well. Played yesterday against the Ottawa Senators for the first time since October 30th. So he's been out for almost 7 weeks, I believe, with
Wow.
that shoulder injury that
Yeah.
happened in a fight in late October. But he's back in action. If you like Ryan Hartman, I'm not sure where he's going to be slotting in over the next couple
Yeah.
of games. But the way Sam Steele is playing right now is Zuccarello and Kaprizov. I could see Hartman starting on the second or third line, working his way back up potentially. But again, Hartman is back in the lineup for the Wild. And now Blake Wheeler of the Winnipeg Jets is out 4 weeks after having groin surgery. I think he took a slap shot from Josh Morrissey a couple of games ago, which obviously affected this situation for Blake Wheeler. I believe Nate Schmidt is now out for another 3 to 4 weeks too, after a big collision over the weekend as well. So 2 guys for the Winnipeg Jets who are out of the lineup.
Jets have to make a waiver wire move claiming Carson Kuhlman. No disrespect to Carson Kuhlman, but this is tough now for a Winnipeg
Yeah.
Jets team who everything was almost going right for them up to this point in the season, Steele. And this is almost classic like sports adversity. Just when you think everything is going to plan, here's a little wrinkle. And, Blake Wheeler, say what you want to say about what he's been over the last couple of years. They took the C off him. There's some up and downs. He's an important piece in that dressing room in Winnipeg. He's an important offensive piece and a good fantasy piece as well. So this is one of those interesting, lower body injury is what they said first. You mentioned the groin. That's a tough one to come back from, no matter what position or player. You talk about a groin injury for a goaltender. Obviously, groins are hard ones to rehab from, and 4 weeks might be 4 weeks. Maybe it's 3, maybe it's 8. Who knows? I'm just speculating. You have to keep your eye on these situations, Steele, and that's why we're going to get to some of these waiver wire targets, some replacements you could be considering for a bunch of these names that we mentioned. The NHL is fast and furious right now, people. It's exciting, and it's healthy for your sports conscience. What else is healthy for you? Athletic Greens. And today's episode is brought to you by Athletic Greens. It's a product that Steele and I use when we hit the gym. It's not always, but we always use Athletic Greens. What is this stuff? With one delicious scoop of AG1 from Athletic Greens in your smoothie, water, or whatever in the morning, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, probiotics, and other delicious ingredients to start your day right. This special blend supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, your recovery from workouts, and your focus at work. Oh, wait, it even helps you age with grace. All the delicious things you need, 0 sugar, no GMOs, no chemicals. And right now it is time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition with AG1 from Athletic Greens. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you 1 free year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. Head over to athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. That is athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. We do have your waiver wire targets. We are going to get to big time bets, but let's start with the waiver wire targets for this upcoming week. Flip, if you don't mind, I'd like to start us off just
Please.
because I have 4 guys that I want to be talking about targeting. First guy, you and I have both mentioned him throughout the course of the season so far, but I'm going to re-mention him again because I'm really surprised that he's only owned between 40 and 50%, and that's Riley Smith of the Vegas Golden Knights.
Thank you,
16
Steele.
goals, 16 goals, 24 points in 33 games. You're welcome, Flip. This is a guy that you and I both talked about because he's lighting the lamp up right now for the Golden Knights, and it's absolutely incredible to see. 3 games, 3-game point streak, 6 points in that time, and for me, he's a special teams juggernaut. 6 power play goals, 4 shorthanded goals, 3-game winning goals. He does everything you can ask for. 17 minutes of ice time, which I think is perfect for Riley right now. And the Vegas Golden Knights have a beautiful schedule coming up. Buffalo, Arizona, and St. Louis this upcoming week.
Bang. Hey, you're getting pretty good at this, Steele, because if I was listening to this podcast, I'm out there adding Riley Smith as we speak. You know I'm high on this player. I watched those highlights the other night. He skates a bit like a gazelle. Very graceful. I just can't. It just popped into my head. It just gazelle. Soft hands as well. Riley Smith. And now Vegas, though, getting it done offensively. You know that I've been very high on this player. I'm going to leave it at that because he was on my list. Scratch it off, Steele. There you go. Riley Smith looking good. And hey, special teams sometimes, like I look at my week to week, by the way, I'm getting dusted aside in our listener league. Shout out to all the listeners out there. Maybe I should stop drafting live on air and giving away all my tips. That's a cop-out. Anyway, Riley Smith, very, very good ad, Steele. Thank you for mentioning the schedule. I think I dropped it to you either on air or off air that I was liking a little bit of what I was seeing from Max Domi.
Yes,
and I understand that he doesn't fill out those peripherals. No blocks, no hits. That's not his game. But we got to pay attention to him playing with Patrick Kane. And now they're scoring some points together. If you need a shot of offense, look, I know, minus 12, 9 blocks, 9 hits. If you're adding him, that's not why you're adding him. 10 goals, 10 assists, power play points. Look at Max Domi because also I know there's only 2 games this week, but Nashville and Columbus give up a lot of goals. Max Domi, if you need a shot of offense, this is a very kind of detailed caveat. I would be looking at Max Domi because I think also he mentioned all day that he loves playing with Patrick Kane, his favorite player growing up. I have a feeling Max Domi is going to go off a little bit with those peripheral assists and goals benefiting from Patrick Kane.
And I think it's a good week to look at Max Domi as well. The one thing that does surprise me about his game, because he thinks he's the toughest guy in the NHL, is that he doesn't have more than 10 hits, or he's not hitting at least twice a game. Because to me, like I said, he probably thinks he's the toughest guy in the NHL. And for a guy who's so chippy and likes to drop the gloves and, a couple of sucker punches in there too.
33 penalty minutes, so good point.
Yeah. It's surprising to see that he doesn't have a lot more hits than 9. But again, I think it's a good week to go after Max Domi. I think he has 19, 20 points on the season so far. So
20,
a little bit better playing with Patrick Kane on that top line. The next guy I'm looking at, and we talked about him earlier today, Jakub Vrana, owned at 35 to 40% on ESPN and Yahoo leagues. 2 points in 2 games a season. Obviously, was reinstated from the NHLPA player assistance program over the weekend. He still is listed on the IR. So the reason I'm mentioning him is he's going to get back in the lineup very, very soon. Don't know when, but it's going to be in the next week at least, I would assume. He's back at practice with the Detroit Red Wings. So even though he's listed on the IR, if you have an IR spot available right now, go pick him up, throw him on the IR for the next week, and then just pick up another player that Flip and I are listing right now, because I think he's a good player to take a shot in the dark with. You and I both agree that he has a ton of talent, a ton of upside offensively. Like you mentioned,
Yeah.
he's a sniper. The big question mark that obviously floats over him is, can he remain healthy? Because that is the big question with Vrana. He's only played one full season in his NHL career. It seems that he's injured at least 20% of the season every single year. So that is the question mark. But with the upside of his potential, when he does get into the lineup, I would put him right on the top line with Larkin and Lucas Raymond right off the top. So that's who I've got next. Who are you looking at, Flip?
Red Wings dealing with a lot of injuries right now,
Oh,
too.
yeah.
So if he is ready to go, you have a feeling he's going to get probably more minutes than he relatively should if he's just back from, missing this much time. But that's not a bad thing for fantasy, even if he's out there adding some of these peripheral shots on net or whatever you have. I know last week probably a lot of people were talking about Brandon Hagel, but I got to mention him again because he just went off on Saturday night. 12 goals, 14 assists, Steele.
Yes.
I know he was on one of these episodes. Maybe I think it was you called him out. I can forget one of the ones you were like, it was one of our, top 5 whatevers that we like to do.
Yeah.
Shout out to all our listeners and followers. But you mentioned Brandon Hagel as, I think it was disappointments, actually. Surprises So now all of a sudden, you got to pay attention because even just by de facto, I'm almost positive. Oh, wait, I am. He's playing on the top line with Braden Point and Nikita Kucherov. That's where you full stop and pay attention to things. 12 goals, 14 assists, 26 points. A big night Saturday night. That's right. 2 goals, 1 assist. You need to be going out there and considering this player only owned at 28% in ESPN. He's probably out there in a lot of formats. Anytime a player gets to play with those studs offensively and fantasy-wise, you got to be taking a shot at him.
Look, this is a guy you mentioned that back in heading into the playoffs, back in like May or June, I was real disappointed in his game because of the way he was playing with Chicago before getting traded. And then you mentioned him heading into the season. Take a look at this guy. He could definitely have a bounce back season. And
Thank you.
You exactly hit it on the nail here. He's on a 5-game point. He's on my list too here, Flip. So I like the fact that you brought him up. 5-game point streak for Brandon Hagel, 5 goals and 9 points in that span. He's also +8 in that span as well.
Nice.
He's playing great on the top line. The Tampa Bay Lightning have a 3-game road trip this week as well.
3 games,
Toronto, Detroit, and Buffalo. Advantageous, I would have to say, for the Tampa Bay Lightning, who seem to get the ball rolling over the last 2 weeks as well. So I'll just go right into my next player. Do you have one more player, Flip?
I have one more player, and I just wanted to mention a last one, and I'm not even going to break it down. I'm just going to throw out the name and a 40-second explanation. So do you want me to go or should you go?
I'll just go with my last player right
Please
now.
do.
I'm looking at the Washington Capitals because they've also got the ball rolling as well. And I'm taking
much to our chagrin.
Yeah. I'm taking a look at Connor Sheary right now, who's only owned at 4 to 7% on ESPN and Yahoo leagues. He's got 10 goals, 19 points in 33 games this season, playing on the top line with Ovechkin and Dylan Strome. He's got 4 points in his last 4 games as well. And like I said, the Capitals are rolling right now, 7-2-1 in their last 10 games. So I would catch them while they're hot. They've got Detroit, Ottawa, and Winnipeg this upcoming week. And again, with a couple of injuries to Winnipeg, injuries to Detroit, and injuries to Ottawa as well, it's an advantageous schedule for the Capitals.
Hey, thank you for teeing up what I want to talk about at Big Time Bets because those Washington Capitals are doing some special things right now, and it's all coming through number 8. They're fired up for what's going on, and they're clearly caring about that goal mark. I'm going to get to that at Big Time Bet, so please stick around because also, if you haven't been paying attention, Steele and I are making a little bit of loot right now, so why don't you jump on that train and pay some of these holiday bills? But very quickly, 2 players, Steele. And you know I like going back to the players I've talked about. Alex Newhook is playing a lot of ice time. Couple of quiet games in the middle of last week. 7 goals, 5 assists, creeping up there, playing a lot of minutes until players start getting healthy in Colorado. They've moved him over to the wing a little bit as well. You need to look at Alex Newhook as a good fill-in. These are my, I'm not top waiver wire, just 2 other guys that I'm looking at. Lastly, Lucas Dostal on the Anaheim Ducks. There is no goaltender in sight in Anaheim. So if you're really hurting, and this is where I wanted to bring in that keeper fantasy, dynasty angle, Dostal is a good goaltender to stash. 3rd round draft pick. I know he got pumped for a couple of goals the other night, but then he's bounced back with 2 wins. Am I saying go out there and add him right now and drop someone? No, but if you need a little goaltender insurance, Gibson and Stolars, that's not the answer in Anaheim. We all know that. You don't need to be a fantasy expert to understand. They're hurt. They're banged up. I don't know when either of those goalies return. Dostal, 2 wins now. 4 games this week for the Anaheim Ducks. Sorry, I almost drawed a blank there. 4 games this week for the Anaheim Ducks. It's a tough schedule. Kings, Wild, Flames, and Golden Knights. But again, keeper, dynasty, consider Dostal. You'll thank me later because he might be a number 1 goaltender even by default. Sooner than later, Steele, go ahead and look up his numbers in junior. Pretty solid.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough week for the Ducks, but that means he's going to be facing a ton of shots against, which, again, for fantasy leagues, just adding up those points.
Better to have a body in there.
Exactly. Let's get over to big time bets, though, where the money is made. But first, thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Don't forget, we are free and available on all podcast platforms, including YouTube. So make sure you hit the subscribe, hammer the follow button. Flip and I appreciate all the love and support out there. And Flip, I heard you say that you had a big flip triple dip. Is that correct? Do you have one?
It's true. I don't know what you want to do.
I love it because I have a big flip triple dip too.
Oh my goodness.
Let's go,
it's been working out for us.
It has. I'll let you start off though.
Do you want me to go with all 3 and then you'll just finish? Because I kind of like that.
Yeah, you go with all 3.
Okay. Here we go. Monday's 8-game board, people. I mentioned a little bit to the Washington Capitals and how well they've been playing. They need some respect thrown on their name, especially from me, who has not given them enough. And I know Alex Ovechkin was held off the score sheet against Toronto, but that has nothing to do with how hard his teammates tried. They're all over the ice trying to feed this guy the puck. They're fired up with this goal record, and it counts for him. He's getting trademarks. He's making statements to front office saying there's no rebuild while I'm doing this. This is Ovechkin's team now more than ever, and he's earned it. But this is being proven by the players around him, Steele. I'm loving this spot at home against the Detroit Red Wings. Gordie Howe's record is on the line here. Long-time Detroit Red Wing. That means nothing, but it feels like a moment. Alex Ovechkin cares about these big-time situations. He's going to go off tonight. Alex Ovechkin, anytime goal, my lock of the night. I'm starting with that because that's how fired up I am. He's going to tie and maybe break the record tonight. That's number 1, lock of the night. Capitals on the puck line. They're going to go off. And let me just hit you with this stat because I like me some trends. Just to back up that puck line. 7-1-2 in the last 10 against the Detroit Red Wings for the Washington Capitals. And my last pick, I'm liking the under here. 5 of the last 5 against the Red Wings for the Capitals, under the number. This just feels also off a big win against those Toronto Maple Leafs. Detroit Red Wings, last point, banged up. Larkin, Ronek, Zadina, Bertuzzi, we know all these. Washington by 2. Ovechkin with the goal. 4-2 Caps final. Big flip, triple dip, baby. I'm feeling it, and I'm excited for yours.
Absolutely love it. I really hope he does score and even possibly break the record tomorrow or tonight in that game. Because look, I sent you that player prop parlay over the weekend. He was the only player who didn't score an anytime goal for me, which was disappointing to see, but I really hope he does get it. So I love the big flip triple dip.
Thank you.
I'll get over to mine right now.
Let's do it.
I want to hear your response to this because maybe it's a little bit of a bold take here.
I love bold takes.
I'm looking at that Montreal Canadiens Arizona Coyotes game for the big flip triple dip. I'm starting with the Canadiens on the money line at plus 117 against these Coyotes. Okay. Look, these are both of the lower tier teams in the league right now. So if I'm going to get some plus odds for the Montreal Canadiens with a couple of young studs that lead them, I'm going to take it every time against these Arizona Coyotes.
Interesting.
Plus 117 on the money line. That's the first pick. Okay. I'm also taking the over 6.5 at plus 101 in this Coyotes Canadiens game as well.
Whoa.
And my lock of the night, kudos to you, by the way. I'm taking anytime goal from Cole Caulfield, who has been lighting the lamp up right now for the
Okay.
Montreal Canadiens.
Okay.
I got to give you props, dude, because at the beginning of the season, Cole Caulfield, Tim Stützle, Elias Pettersson, you talked about them.
You were harsh on me for only one of those players. I think it was Caulfield was the most you were unbelievable.
I was harsh on Caulfield because I didn't know if he could get to 35, maybe even 40 goals.
I said 40. Yeah.
But that looks like it's probably going to be the case this season. I liked a lot what I've seen from Elias Pettersson this year.
Yeah,
a lot more in the past. I think Tim Stützle has still a lot more way to develop and go, but he's still the point production. Nonetheless, the three young guys that you mentioned have been great this year.
Appreciate you, brother. Look, Caulfield, of all three of your picks, I would be inclined to hammer the Caulfield angle the most. I'm wary betting against these games. Look, Montreal has looked awful. So, so that's why I'm just I'm wary what you're saying. Otherwise, I'm hammering Caulfield. I like that one. The over, not to be that guy. 11 of the last 15 Habs games on the road have gone under the number. That doesn't mean anything against Arizona Coyotes, but much love for your appreciation for those takes. And Caulfield will now be making my card. You sold me on that.
Perfect. Let's do it. But look, the streak for me has been red hot right now. So I'm feeling the fire a little bit. I feel dabbling, getting a little risky. That's why I'm going with this game for the big flip triple dip. So
love it.
Make sure you're putting your money in, putting some bets on these player props, our picks and our lock of the nights for Monday. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Once again, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast, just like this one right here, Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning Eastern time. You don't want to miss out. And thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with all your bets out there, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.